Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As you can see, I'm standing up, I'm vlog styling it, and I'm not in front of the usual backdrop for my channel, in front of the Talk Scottish Football backdrop. Why, you ask? Because today's video, I've decided I'm actually going to use an extract from the Talk Scottish Football podcast today. If you haven't already, then please, I urge you to both subscribe to my channel down below. If you haven't, then that'd be great. And head over to Talk Scottish Football, where you can see me talk more about the rest of the league, be it Celtic and Rangers, Aberdeen, everybody else over there with David and everybody else who's now part of the team. We have shows up every day now, live shows and pre-recorded podcasts, content for everybody to enjoy. So I'm going to use an extract from today's show because it's a point that I feel like we have to talk about for quite a bit. John Kennedy has been linked with the director of football role at Celtic, which I am entirely baffled about. I think that it's ridiculous. I don't think it will happen anyway. Let's just rubbish it straight away. And from my point of view, I don't think it will happen. I think that it's nonsense. It's kind of one of those clickbait stories. And along with the good news of Eddie Howe apparently nearing the completion of signing for Celtic, I think they've got to throw in some bad news just to try and ground this a little bit. And that might be it as John Kennedy, of director of football. Look, I've said this for years. I'm a big fan of John Kennedy. I really like John Kennedy. And I wouldn't even be fussed if he stayed at the club. I've said this so many times. I think he should go. And we talk about that in this video. I think he should go. I think he should go elsewhere. I don't think he should stay at Celtic. But to give him the director of football role would be a complete misjudgment of where we're heading by the board. I think it would be a complete... I think it would be negligence to try and kind of throw Kennedy into that role without really setting any preparation there for him. And I think ultimately it would just be something not welcomed by Celtic fans. It's so weird because, you know, we've been talking about Fergal Harkin, we've been talking about Richard Hughes. They'll be the two names that we've spoke about the most. You know, we've been hearing their names thrown into the stories every week. For it now to be apparently John Kennedy, as reported by some articles, it would make no sense. It really comes out of nowhere. So I'm rather confused. And Celtic fans' reaction haven't been great to it. Look, we'll speak about this in great depth on the next episode of the Celtic the Thunder. Undoubtedly, we'll speak about it for a great depth of time. Why it would be such a bad decision to have him as the director of football. But you've got to remember, this is a club who's now moving forward into a new era, into a kind of new generation of Celtic, you could say. There's a complete rebuild. It's arguably the biggest rebuild in the club's history. We need to come back next year with a vengeance. We need to establish ourselves as the best team in the country again. You don't do that by making one of the most vital roles in this new setup someone who has been part of an integral part of such failure this season on and off the park. I've already said, and I'll say it time and time again, I really respect John Kennedy, and I really like John Kennedy. But you do not put him in such a big role for this, not a chance. This is, you know, we need to breed new players, new blood has to come in for both playing wise and staff wise. And the director of football plays such a big role in that, not only being a new role at Celtic and being a new member of staff, but because they have so much power and influencing and changing everything about the club and who comes in. They get a big say when it comes to staffing, when it comes to signings. John Kennedy was a part of this failing system under Lennon, so to suddenly put him at the top of a new system, to me, just seems very, very odd, and I do not like the thought of it. Now, I'm going to switch over to the podcast, the clip from there. I hope you enjoy it. If you do, make sure to head over to the Talk Scottish Football channel. There's so much to talk about with all of this. You know, we talk about the kind of decisions that Kennedy has made in terms of his team selections and such. Like, John Kennedy was a guy who, before the Aberdeen game, said he was going to make changes and then never made any changes. So, you know, as a director of football, what changes there? You know, these are small things. I know that's not on the same scale as being a director of football, and I understand that, I really do. But that's just a glimpse of what could potentially happen if he was a director of football. What if there is what if there is no significant change? Then you're talking about big problems for the foreseeable at Celtic for years to come. You know, being a director of football, that's a role that you don't sack in like every 2 or 3 years and change every, like, the director of football's got to be a long-term role. They've got to be there for a long time, probably. So, got to talk about a lot of the issues on the park that Kennedy has had, with his players and all the rest of it, and team selections. And just try and enjoy. Thanks for watching this video. Here it is. So, Rangers and Celtic, Ibrox is the venue for the final derby of the season. Now, let's talk very briefly about Celtic going into this, because the Eddie Howe rumours are once more creeping up on us. It looks to be a done deal. It looks to be the fact that it's a matter of time with just the backroom staff. Thank God. We can put it to bed hopefully soon.
Monday, I think. Sounds like Monday, doesn't
Monday
it?
does sound like maybe Monday. And from what I'm hearing, John Kennedy will still remain manager throughout the last 3 games.
That makes sense.
Do you think that's a good idea?
I think it makes sense.
Well,
there's no point in bringing in... who steps up? The under-20s coach or Stratton or whatever? I don't see...
If Howe was going to take the end of the season, it would have been done months ago rather than now. I was always... But John Kennedy... an interesting talk about him because there's rumours he'll stay on as director.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Because obviously I'll give my opinions to this on the Celtic the Thunder tomorrow, so I won't dive into it too much because we'll be here all day, and that's for Celtic fans a very big conversation. But John Kennedy staying as director of football, David, is it baffling to you?
Absolutely baffling. How is he qualified for that role in any way whatsoever?
Well, you see, you say that, right? You say that, but how many directors of football start in that role being qualified? Like, this is me playing devil's advocate here because I personally don't want John Kennedy to stay on as director of football. I think it was a nice idea at some point, but then when you look at it, you're like, no, you have to move on. But you look at Darren Fletcher, for example. Manchester United, the biggest club in the world. Darren Fletcher's not qualified for that role.
No, but Darren Fletcher will have been set up for that role a long time ago, whereas we were talking 2 weeks ago about how John Kennedy was still going to be part of the coaching team. It just seems to me they're trying to shoehorn him in rather than sack him.
I'm just playing devil's advocate.
They're just trying to get him a job somewhere.
I think the best thing for John Kennedy after this season's probably to go and do something else. Because I don't think you can argue that he's actually been really good for Celtic up until this season. And maybe he's been through under the bus a wee bit because how much can he really do when there's another guy in charge?
I think if
to
John
a certain
Kennedy,
extent. So for him in his career,
I think if John Kennedy ever wants that Celtic job at some point, he's got to go away and establish himself as a manager elsewhere.
That's what Scott Brown's doing, isn't it?
Aberdeen could have been a big chance, of course.
I thought he was going to get that job.
Yeah, but see if John Kennedy goes away somewhere, does really well at a team, that Celtic job is going to be his one day. But he needs to go away and do it. He's not. I feel like staying at the club and maybe getting through some bad patches is just going to further deteriorate his chances of being Celtic manager. But at the end of the day, Eddie Howe coming is very, very good news. Is that the start of the rebuild process Monday night? Do you think we'll start to hear the links of transfers? Do you think the wheels will be in motion?
You
for
better
Celtic?
hope so, because they've been waiting far too fucking long. They need to get players in. We talked about this weeks ago. They're still not confirmed the manager, but they already should be getting players in. They also need to find out who's leaving and find out quickly, because they can't be in a situation where come early July they've still got Ayer there or they've still got Edouard there and they are not sure if they're staying or going. That is the worst thing that could happen.
They need that £30 million quick.
They need the money, but they also need the certainty in terms of knowing this is what we need. And because there was a little bit of that with Rangers last summer where they got away with it luckily because there was the whole Morelos stuff. Was he going to stay? Was he going to go? Luckily for Rangers, Roof came in and hit the ground running, and then it didn't end up being an issue. But it quite easily could have been had that Roof not done that well, had they not managed to get the players in. You end up in a situation where you're banking on players maybe. There's Christie as well. Who knows what's going to happen with Ryan Christie? We were talking about him last night. I think Howe could revitalise his Celtic career, but is he going to stay for it? I don't know. I don't know. There's still so many questions for Celtic, but they need to get on with things rapid because they'll end up playing near Beaton at the start of the season again at centre half, like they always do.
In terms of Celtic, this is massive because John Kennedy now needs to make these changes. He came out before the Aberdeen game and says, I'm going to make changes, this is time to make changes. What was the change? He dropped Barkas. Was that it? Like taking him off the bench and just not altogether?
But why does John Kennedy
need to make changes?
Why?
Because he's
not getting the job.
I know, but he's got
why did he do it
for the
weeks
good
ago
of the
then?
club. I don't know. I literally don't know. For the good of the squad, you've got to have guys in this team who are going to be a part of
they
it.
They don't
care. People, do you know what's even annoying me? People are sitting, and I've seen so many Celtic Twitter accounts and people online saying Griffiths should be playing over Edouard because Edouard won't be.
Griffiths shouldn't be anywhere near that start.
Griffiths be in the start? Why is Griffiths isn't here next year? The amount of people who've watched that goal against Aberdeen. I mean, do you know what? Actually, you should give him a chance next year. Give him one there. See. Get him so far away from the club as possible. The only striker in Celtic squad's got to be here and should be here next season is Albion Ayeti. Play him.
But even then, he's not fit enough.
It's crazy.
Why is he not fit enough? Out of his own, as an athlete, have some self-respect.
He also hasn't getting games though.
But I know,
he might be a certain player that needs a run of games.
But who cares? If you run your fucking bollocks off and train and get yourself, you tell me Albion Ayeti looks like he's at his peak fitness just now.
Well, no, he doesn't. He certainly doesn't look it. It looks a bit, touch and go with the weight.
I know, which is rich come from me. But I mean, and Griffiths, like Jesus Christ, he is the epitome of everything that's wrong with Celtic this season. Talented
but
player.
Is it not? You're not a Celtic fan. Can you imagine my frustration as I see a lot of Celtic fans saying, "Get Griffiths in the team over Edouard"?
See, from the outside looking in, this was the biggest season you could say in Celtic's history. Let's just say, I don't know if it is, but it was up there.
Well, I mean, listen,
it was up there. See, going
there.
into it, there've been some fans that said that.
Oh, aye, got it.
Plenty said that.
Yes,
and it was almost like
maybe
they were away, right? They were away doing the COVID stuff and that. The players were gave all their training plans. The fact that he came back and basically spat in the manager's face. it's disrespecting the Celtic fans, I think, as well, to a certain extent.
No, that's what I'm
He's had
saying.
so many chances,
Yes.
and as you said, he's talented, and when he's in fine form, he scores goals. But there's been a running theme here. I think Rodgers had a problem with him as well when it came to his fitness and him not being ready, which then reflects back in his professionalism.
And then
the next manager, he got a chance and he does well, and you think, oh, he could keep going, and then he basically, it's almost like he throws himself under the bus. And how many chances can you get?
And Ryan Christie takes so much stick off Celtic fans. Now, rightly or wrongly, if his performance is fine, but see if everyone else in the Celtic squad was as fit as Ryan Christie is, and ran as much as he did, and tried as hard as he did. If Lee Griffiths had Ryan Christie's fitness, he'd be starting every week.
Aye, Christie, third most goal contributions at Celtic this season. I think he's on something like 9 goals, 13 assists. He's been vital, and yes, his decision making and his shots have been very poor at times. Yes, I have no doubt, and I've always been. I have been very critical of Christie since he came into the Celtic squad. I've never been a big Christie fan, but there is no denying that there's a talent player there. And with Eddie Howe as a coach, he will be once again the way that he was when he first broke into that Celtic squad back under Brendan Rodgers.
I think if you look at a lot of the Celtic players this season and in the last couple, you would look at them and think that they've regressed. When Rodgers went into Celtic, he didn't really make a lot of changes. He brought in some key players like Dembele and Sinclair, but he really took McGregor and he almost took fucking Scott Brown against Rangers in the semi-final, looked like his legs
down the pan,
were gone.
It was done.
And he brought all these players, so that's what just shows to show you what a good manager and a good coach can do.
But the biggest one for me is
never know with players.
Stuart Armstrong's the biggest one for me.
Yes, I mean, McGregor for me personally, but that
Armstrong before Rodgers came in.
But as Howe Rodgers though as well, do you know what I mean?
So well, he's definitely a better coach than Neil Lennon. There's no doubt about that.
I think how is the close, and I've said this since November. How is the closest thing that Celtic will ever see to Brendan Rodgers again? And in terms of who's around just now, the closest thing.